All right, here we go. Got the button pushed correctly this time. We are now live. So good morning, everyone. Back to school time means back to work for us. So welcome. It is 9:30, and I have the pleasure of calling this meeting to order for the Advisory Commission on Charter Schools for August 8th. Members of the public who wish to make public comment may do so in person or by calling into the meeting. Public comment will be limited to 1 minute per person for each item. Members of the public wishing to make public comment in person should sign up on the sign-up sheets located on the tables in the back of the boardroom. California Department of Education staff will call up members of the public by name when it is time to take public comment. Individuals should form a queue behind the microphone at the back of the boardroom and wait for further direction from department staff prior to making public comment. Members of the public wishing to dial in for public comment should view the live stream of the meeting. The number and access code will be provided at the start of public comment for each item. Prior to making public comment, callers who are watching the meeting's live webcast should make sure that the volume on their computer is muted to avoid echoing sounds during the call. When it is a caller's turn to make public comment, the caller will hear a voice announcement that says that they are unmuted. Another announcement will be made when a caller's time for public comment has ended. To call in for public comment, dial 717-908-1926 and use access code 1166083#. And at this time, Commissioner Taylor has agreed to lead us in the flag salute.
Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. At this time, we'd like to recognize Sharon Oken as our our State Board Liaison. Thank you for joining us this morning. And call on each of the commissioners at this time. We'll start at my right with Commissioner Taylor and just introduce yourself and who you represent.
Morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Matt Taylor, represent Charter Schools.
Good morning. Todd Fennell, representing California County Superintendents.
Helio Brazil, representing superintendents or admin.
And I am Mike Walsh, representing governing boards of school districts.
Good morning, everyone. Nancy Portillo, representing our State Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Good morning. Steve Olmos, representing parents.
Good morning. Derek King, representing Charter Schools.
Thank you, everyone. Now we'll move on to review and adoption of our meeting notes from the June 2023 ACCS meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion to accept the review and adopt. Do we have a second? And we have a second. We'll take a vote. I vote aye. Commissioner Taylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Olmos?
Aye.
Commissioner Portillo?
Aye.
Commissioner King?
Aye.
Commissioner Fennell?
Aye.
And Commissioner Brazil?
Aye.
All right. We will take general public comment after the Charter Schools Division update. Members of the public who wish to make general public comment by phone for items that are not part of the ACCS agenda may dial in now. Please call 717-908-1926 and use access code 1166083#. You must enter the access code, again, that is 1166083#, to be added to the caller queue. Callers making public comment should make sure the volume on their computer is muted to avoid echoing sounds during the call. Now we'll move on to Charter Schools update.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I do have a few updates for you this morning from the Charter Schools Division. The Advisory Commission and Charter Schools meeting dates for the 2024 calendar year have been set and are posted online on the ACCS meetings webpage. Public Charter Schools Grant Program update. The PCSGP, we ran a spring 2023 funding competition and has awarded startup subgrant funding to 5 new charter schools. The PCSGP also funds the Charter Authorizer Support Initiative, CASI, which provides professional development and networking opportunities for authorizers throughout the state. CASI offers monthly charter chats and quarterly trainings. We've had 96 attendees at July's Charter Chat and have just passed the milestone of more than 2,000 total participants at all CASI events. The next Charter Chat is scheduled for Wednesday, August 30th from 10 to 11. Registration information is available on the Charter School Division's webpage. See you there. PCSGP also funds the Regional Technical Assistance and Coaching, RTAC, subgrant, which funds professional learning, community coaching, and best practices workshops. In total, these technical assistance activities supported nearly 450 educators and school leaders across the state. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, we will take public comment first from people in the room. CD staff will call the names of members of the public. Please form a line at the microphone located in the back of the room. Do we have anyone signed up? Then we will move on. Do we have callers on the phone?
Good morning, Chair Walsh. Yes, we do have currently 3 callers in the queue. Good morning, caller. Please state your name and affiliation for the record. Your time starts now.
My name is Jay Perlano. I'm one of the teachers here at Vista. Being here right now, I have parents who are coming in still asking about this legacy high school, especially for a group of students that I took over to Baltimore and to Washington, D.C. to meet with some congressmen this summer. I was part of a student-led collaborative group, and our students really focused in on solving global issues. And one of the things that dawned on me is all this work that they have done here in the middle school. I would love to work with them and continue to get them to build off of this work in their high school. There's remarkable things that we do here, and I would love to have the opportunity with Vista and the rest of the organization to continue this work as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please state your name and affiliation for the record. Your time starts now. Please state your general public comment. Caller ending with a phone number ending in 8734. Next caller, please state your name and affiliation for the record. Your time starts now. Okay, we don't have any callers in the queue.
All right, then we will move on. The ACCS will hear one appeal. It is our agenda for today. So people wishing to make public comment by phone for item 1 should call in at this time. Dial 717-908-1926 and use access code 1166083# when prompted. You must enter access code 1166083# to be added to the caller queue for those wishing to make public comment on item number 1. Let me move to my notes. So, our role today is to either recommend that the state board hear the Vista legacy appeal if we determine that sufficient evidence has been submitted to hear the appeal based on the documentary record, or that we recommend that the state board summarily deny the appeal if we determine that insufficient evidence has been submitted to hear the appeal based on the documentary record. Should we take no action, the state board will consider the appeal, either hearing it or summarily denying review based upon the documentary record. The ACCS is not intended to delve into the merits of the petition or determine whether an abuse of discretion has occurred. Let me state that one more time. We are not intended to delve into the merits of the petition or to determine whether an abuse of discretion has occurred. That is for the state board to decide, depending on whether they make a determination that they will hear the appeal. So we will also hold all questions until after public comment. And at this moment, it looks like, Craig, you are here to share with us information on behalf of the CDE.
Thank you, Chair Walsh and Commissioners and Member Olken. Yes, I'm Craig Heimbichner from the Charter Schools Division, and I will be presenting the appeal of the denial of the petition to establish Vista Legacy Global Academy item number 1. So a little background on the school. Vista Legacy Global Academy or VLGA or Vista, submitted its petition to establish a grade 9 through grade 12 charter school to the Los Angeles Unified School District, we'll call that the district, pursuant to California Education Code or EC Section 47605A. The district denied the petition on November 15th, 2022 by a vote of 5-1 based on the following findings. Petitioners are demonstrably unlikely to successfully implement the program. The petition does not contain reasonably comprehensive descriptions of all of the required elements. The charter school is demonstrably unlikely to serve the interests of the entire community in which the school is proposing to locate. And then a little bit more background. The school appealed the district's denial to the Los Angeles County Board of Education, or county, pursuant to EC Section 47605K1AI. And the county denied the petition on March 14th, 2023 by a vote of 4-3 based on the following findings. Petitioners are demonstrably unlikely to successfully implement the program. The petition does not contain reasonably comprehensive descriptions of all of the required elements. And then the charter school is demonstrably unlikely to serve the interests of the entire community in which the school is proposing to locate. Then finally, VLGA submitted its petition to the California State Board of Education, or SBE, on April 13th, 2023, pursuant to EC Section 47605K2. The recommendation that the California Department of Education is making to the Advisory Commission on Charter Schools, or ACCS, that's you, is that you issue a recommendation to the SBE to hear the VLGA appeal. And this recommendation is based upon the CDE's review of the documentary record, which sets out sufficient evidence to hear the appeal. ACCS action and subsequent SBE action. Pursuant to EC Section 47605K2D, the ACCS shall hold a public hearing to review the appeal and documentary record, and based on its review, submit a recommendation to the SBE whether there is sufficient evidence to hear the appeal or summarily deny review of the appeal based on the documentary record. At its September 2023 meeting, the SBE will determine whether to hear the appeal or summarily deny review of the appeal. Now, a bit on the school's appeal submission. The appeal submission. VLGA submitted the following items pursuant to EC Section 47605K2A, a written submission of their appeal, which included allegations of abuse of discretion by the governing boards of the district and county, VLGA's charter petition, the documentary record from the district, the documentary record from the county, and supporting documentation from VLGA. Just to summarize their appeal a bit, regarding the district's denial of the petition, VLGA alleges the following. The factual findings adopted by the district board are not supported by substantial evidence in light of the entire record. The district abused its discretion by acting unlawfully and in a procedurally unfair manner by using an unlawfully burdensome definition of community impact and by imposing requirements found nowhere in the Charter Schools Act. And then regarding the county's denial of the petition, VLGA alleges the following. Statutory finding C2 is arbitrary and capricious in that the factual findings are not supported by evidence in the record. The county board acted in an arbitrary manner without evidentiary support when it adopted statutory finding C5. The county board acted unlawfully when it failed to provide a de novo review and relied on undue deference to LA Unified's in adopting their statutory finding of the district C7. And then finally, Los Angeles County Board of Education's hearing was procedurally infirm and unfair. Those are the allegations. You've also heard a summary of both the district and the county's grounds for denial. We won't be getting into, as Chair Walsh reminded us, the specifics of those. That's for the state board. Basically, what we are looking at is in making a recommendation to the state board and asking you to make a recommendation as the commissioners to hear the appeal is that the school submitted all the required documents and they met all the timelines, and they did that pursuant to EC Section 47605K2A. And then based on its review of the records submitted pursuant to EC Section 47605K2A, the CDE finds that the appeal presents sufficient evidence for the ACCS to issue a recommendation to the SBE to hear the appeal pursuant to EC Section 47605K2D. And that's our conclusion and recommendation. We have some presentations as well, and I'll be available, and staff will be available if you need to have any further clarifications. Thank you.
All right. At this time, again, we will hold all our questions until after public comment. People wishing to make public comment by phone for item 1 should call in at this time. Dial 717-908-1926 and use access code 1166083 # when prompted. You must enter, again, access code 1166083 # to be added to the caller queue. So at this time, the public hearing is now open, and we will invite Vista Legacy Global Academy. Will have 10 minutes to address the commission. And following Vista Legacy's presentation, Los Angeles Unified School District and Los Angeles County Office of Education will have a combined 10 minutes to address the commission. And so at this time, the public hearing is open.
Good morning, members of the Advisory Commission. My name is Dr. Don Wilson. I'm the superintendent for Vista Charter Public Schools, and I'd like to thank this distinguished committee for taking your time to consider our case and petition for recommendation to the State Board. I also want to publicly thank the CDE for the time and the effort that they put into their recommendation to move our case forward to the State Board of Education. I've been in education for 35 years, 17 years as a teacher, 7 years as a site administrator, 3 years working as a director for LAUSD, overseeing 18 schools serving K through 12 students. And now I'm in my 8th year as a superintendent for Vista. I've dedicated my life to the students of California, and I believe it is my civic duty and moral obligation and imperative to ensure equal access for all students to a stellar education. When I began my tenure at Vista Schools, we were a very small organization with only 2 middle schools. My immediate concern was that most of our students came to us far below grade level. We had only 3 years to help them catch up, and then we'd have to send them off to high school with only hopes that they might graduate. I believed then, as I believe today, that we could transform students' lives if we could get them started with us in TK and hold ourselves accountable for their education and success through the end of high school. Together with my board and team, we set out to create a K-12 pathway for each of our middle schools in 2 different counties, one in Orange County and one in Los Angeles. This has been our mission and mandate for the last 7 years. We now have an elementary school and a high school in Orange County, and all 3 of our schools receive yearly glowing reviews by the Orange County Department of Education. Perhaps even more importantly, their charter school division that conducts the reviews give us the highest praise year after year. We are routinely held up as examples of high-quality schools that excel with special education and EL students, as well as the best SEL program in Orange County. In Los Angeles, we have been authorized to operate our TK5 Vista Horizon Global Academy, which provides our students with a strong foundation before entering into the middle school. Both schools have received very strong oversight visits from LAUSD year after year, and the middle school has been approved by the LAUSD board 3 times unanimously since 2010. With our high retention rates, our students are now with us for 9 years, and the reason we have such strong community support for the new high school. Our proposed high school for Los Angeles is an international study school with career pathways embedded into the curriculum and with dual enrollment that allows our students to graduate after 4 years with a high school diploma and an associate's degree. We also incorporate STEAM-based education with a highly proclaimed Project Lead the Way that doesn't start in high school but starts in kindergarten and culminates in the 12th grade, providing key technical and STEM-related skills and experiences in the field of biomedicine. We are most proud that we provide a compelling context for learning through project-based learning that culminates in our students taking action on important issues in their community and abroad. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't highlight our SEL program called Way of Counsel. Our unique program moves way beyond the classroom with parents, teachers, students, TAs, support staff, and administrators fully participating on a weekly and sometimes daily basis. And it has created a safe and inclusive environment and that promotes full engagement by all of our stakeholders. It was mentioned in the findings that our students in our area could find our program at other schools. There is a small nugget of truth in that comment. But the larger truth is that a student and their family would have to drive at least 40 miles and stop by at least 5 schools to access the comprehensive and transformational program that we offer on one campus. And even if it were physically possible to do that in Los Angeles, the students would never be able to find a school that offers our Way of Counsel program or participate in the climate change pathway that is currently under development with UCI and which will only be found initially at Vista high schools. Perhaps the highest praise that we have received is from our students and from our families. They return year after year, and they beg us to open up a high school in Los Angeles so they can continue with the Vista family and to continue with the education we provide. Just this week, we attended the 8th grade graduation, and quite frankly, the most common question at the beginning of the year was, when will we open up our high school? On behalf of those students and their families and the teachers and staff who serve them, I humbly ask for your support and recommendation to allow Vista Legacy Global Academy appeal move forward to the State Board hearing. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Chair Walsh and Commissioners. My name is John Lemo, and I'm pleased to be here representing Vista Charter Public Schools this morning. We are obviously in support of the staff recommendation. I want to just note for you, although it's not something that's in your calculus for your decision today, there's actually a change in law in this process that occurred about 6 weeks or so ago with the governor's budget trailer bill. This process used to be under AB 1505, which was that the state board could overturn an appeal of this nature if it finds there was an abuse of discretion at one or both of the below agencies, meaning the district or the county. The law going forward for new appeals is actually that the state board will need to find that there was an abuse of discretion at both the district and county agencies. This appeal, however, is under the old AB 1505 rule. It started during the old process. So it's our position, and I believe it's CDE's position, although that is yet to be articulated, is that it is an abuse of discretion at one or both of those agencies in order for the state board to, should it decide to do in its discretion, overturn that and approve the charter. In any event, for this appeal, we've actually called out abuses of discretion at both the district and the county levels. They're in the papers. The appeals now under AB 1505, I say now like it just happened. I mean, this is 4 years ago. But appeals under the current system is document-based. So everything's based on the documentary record and review of the documentary record, which is why staff have reviewed extensively the documentary record to see, in their opinion, there is enough evidence there or lack thereof for the state board to hear, meaning to consider and potentially act on the appeal. And they have determined that there is, I think correctly, and we certainly support that. I will note that in one of the oppositions to the appeal from LA Unified, they attached a November 9, 2022 memo that's really not addressed to anybody from former Assemblymember Patrick O'Donnell, who's one of the authors of AB 1505. I just want to point out to you, so you're aware of what that is. That was presented as part of a lawsuit against the State Board of Education for its approval of a charter over the denial of a school district. That opinion, that letter, that document was rejected both by the Attorney General's office in its defense of the State Board of Education, and was also soundly rejected by the trial court as being irrelevant. The statute says what it says. Here in this appeal, what is conspicuous, and it's in our papers, and we've cited to it as much as we can, but it's hard to cite to the absence of anything, is the absence of evidence supporting many of the findings. Also present is the imposition of unlawful requirements and the failure to proceed in a manner required by law. Those are abuses of discretion under the CDE's articulated standard and also just under the general law for abuses of discretion in courts. The bottom line is that agencies, the local agencies, the districts and the county offices of education must provide a fair and lawful process and ensure that if they're going to override the presumption of approval for charters, that there are actually citations to facts in the documentary record, which you get to review, upon which they rely. Because the context here of the Charter Schools Act is that establishment of charter schools shall be encouraged. That's a quote. That's what it says. So that's the premise. That's the starting point. So when these petitions are submitted to districts and then to counties on appeal, the premise, the lens that these staff folks are looking at these petitions through is that of approval. It's encouraged. This is a very successful school. This is a school that already, an operator that already operates a successful school and has been renewed successfully in LA Unified. They are not unlikely to be successful with this school. I want to just point you to a few examples. They're all in the record that we presented. One of them is the county board concluded that Vista is likely to be unsuccessful because it has the same five-member board as its other schools. That's common, very common for schools to have the same board operating multiple schools. That's not a reason to be unsuccessful. Many districts would say that it is a reason to be successful. Another example is LA Unified imposed for this school and others an unlawful community impact analysis requirement. They have recently sort of softened that in the past couple months by amending that policy, but that policy is the subject of a lawsuit. Parent group is suing LA Unified over the imposition of a requirement that a submittal must include an analysis and information that LA Unified already has of all schools in a 28 square mile area.
Time.
I'm sorry, did I hear time? Thank you. We support staff recommendation.
Thank you. At this time, we will hear Los Angeles Unified District and the county. They will have a combined 10 minutes to address the commission.
Thank you and good morning. Chair Walsh, Commissioners, Dr. Portillo, State Board Representatives, Olken, Glover Woods, thank you. My name is Jose Cole Gutierrez, and I stand here with my colleague Richard Gonzalez and additional colleagues on behalf of our Superintendent Alberto Carvalho and our Board of Education, respectfully asking you to recommend and advise to the State Board to summarily deny the appeal for the reasons that we'll discuss, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have. In advancing the slide here, let's make sure it's working. There we go. Thank you for your service and taking time to review the materials, which we believe will show that there is not the sufficient evidence, as well as recommending that the answer be yes as to your advisement to summarily deny the appeal. And we do so respectfully of staff's recommendation. But as we'll show, we hope to show, we believe that this body should take that summarily deny step. I'll introduce Richard to continue, please.
Thank you very much, Director Cole Gutierrez. I'd like for us to shift to the legal framework, which sets the foundation and authority for state charter appeals. More specifically, Ed Code Section 47605 provides the standard of review for the ACCS to use in its consideration today. So prior to, Just prior to getting into the standard of review discussion, I'd like to kind of give a brief overview of the district board's actions in in denying the petition. Specifically on November 15th, 2022, our board denied the petition on 3 statutory grounds consistent with Ed Code Section 47605 C2, C5, and C7. The petitioner bears the burden of proving the opposite but has failed to do so. And as to preface a further discussion, you'll see that the petitioner has failed to acknowledge or address our findings under subdivision C5, which is a waiver under appeal, which is very, very important and crucial for this appeal proceeding. Let's now move on to the standard of review for the ACCS. The standard of review is the compass that guides the appellate body, in this case, the State Board and the ACCS, to its decision. It defines and limits the course the appellate body follows in arriving at its destination. So per statute, the ACCS shall submit a recommendation to the State Board where there is sufficient evidence to hear the appeal. While sufficient evidence is not defined by the Charter Schools Act, the CDE staff report makes no findings nor provides a rationale or nexus connecting or establishing that there is a sufficient evidence to hear the appeal. It's a very strong threshold. The CDE staff report on page 3 merely makes a recitation of 2 allegations and then fails to justify that recommendation in the report. Those 2 allegations are set forth in the report verbatim, and in this case, without explanation, it makes a strong inference that the appeal presents sufficient evidence to the ACCS to issue a recommendation to the State Board to hear the appeal. As confirmed in the record and discussed in the district's written opposition, we disagree with the recommendation. As indicated in the presentation materials, we'll outline the 2 allegations verbatim and then respond to say why, as a matter of law, they do not meet that sufficient evidence threshold, which stops all proceedings at this, First allegation, the factual findings adopted by the district board are not supported by substantial evidence in light of the entire record. Substantial evidence is not the standard of review and is different from abuse of discretion. The petitioner improperly shifts to standard review, suggesting that LUSD's findings are under that standard of review. If the substantial evidence was analyzed under that standard, it could lead to an improper and inappropriate conclusion in this case. Therefore, on its face, this allegation is improperly framed and thus fails to meet the standard of review before this commission. Second allegation, the district abused its discretion by acting unlawfully and in a procedurally unfair manner by using an unlawfully burdensome definition of community impact and by imposing requirements found nowhere in the Charter Schools Act. The petitioner's allegations are not within the purview of the State Board and powers of review, and specifically before this commission. The petitioner asked the State Board, number 1, to weigh in on the propriety and appropriateness of LAUSD policies, and number 2, to determine that LAUSD's policies specifically related to community impact are preempted by the Charter Schools Act. These allegations are not within the scope of the State Board's authority and specifically with the ACCS's authority. Therefore, on its face, they failed to meet the standard of review. In all, sufficient evidence has not been met for the State Board to hear the petitioner's appeal. Okay.
We're going to transition to our colleagues at the county. We understand they'll be given a moment to transition here, and the balance of our material is in the packet. Thank you.
Good morning, members of the ACCS. My name is Patrick Saldani. I'm the Deputy General Counsel for the Los Angeles County Office of Education. I'm accompanied by Indra Ciccarelli, the Director of our Charter Schools Office, and we're appearing on behalf of the Los Angeles County Board of Education, presenting our opposition to the appeal of Vista Legacy. The standard of review is set forth on this slide. LAUSD did a really good job explaining that. A couple things I just want to call out here is that under an abuse of discretion standard, deference must be given to the decisions of the LAUSD governing board and the Los Angeles County Board of Education to deny the petition. And I just want to point out the final case on this slide, the Mayacamas Charter School case, where the court held that the State Board is not free to exercise its independent judgment in reviewing the evidence in the record. So in this appeal, Vista has failed to show any abuse of discretion by the Los Angeles County Board of Education. In this case, staff conducted a review of Vista's petition and information provided by Vista. Based on that review and analysis, and as explained in our opposition to this appeal, the County Board of Education properly denied Vista's charter. Vista now appeals that decision based in large part upon an absurd argument that the County Board abused its discretion by relying upon data and information provided by Vista. For example, Vista applied a 3-mile radius community definition in its charter petition when it submitted the appeal to the County Board of Education. Vista never suggested that a different community should be considered and did not propose any alternative analysis in any of the materials it submitted to the County Board of Education. So the petition was analyzed using Vista's own data. With no legal support for its position and citing a case that has nothing to do with the definition of community, Vista now contends that analyzing the petition based upon their own community definition and data constituted an abuse of discretion. This position is without legal support. This is an appeal where Vista is grasping at straws in the hope of finding an abuse of discretion. The record demonstrably disproves Vista's allegations. This is an organization that has repeatedly failed to perform basic functions, such as submitting dashboard data to CDE, and it takes issue with being analyzed based upon its own representations and data. Vista also chose to wait until 4:50 p.m. the day before the board meeting to submit a 30-page response to the staff report, and is now seeking to create a requirement that each and every point in that 11th hour response had to be specifically rebutted by the county board on the following day, and no such requirement exists under the Charter Schools Act. Additionally, the appeal demonstrates a lack of understanding of basic parliamentary procedure. The county board has adopted Robert's Rules of Order. Under Robert's Rules, a motion to amend which has been moved and seconded may be considered. A motion to amend a motion that's been moved and seconded may be considered. But motions to amend can't be adverse to the pending motion. An attempt to bring an adverse motion in the guise of a motion to amend is improper, out of order, and not permitted to be acted upon. In this case, the record is clear. A motion to deny Vista's charter had been moved and seconded. Though Vice President Chan indicated that she would like to move to amend it to approve the charter, that is an adverse motion, was improper and out of order, and properly was not acted upon. Vista's contention on this point is entirely without legal support and does not present a triable issue for the State Board of Education. As a reminder, as stated in the Mayacamas charter case, the ACCS and State Board may not substitute their independent judgment for that of the County Board of Education. But it's plainly apparent from this appeal that that's what Vista is seeking, in the hopes that a different outcome will be reached. Under the abuse of discretion standard, even if the ACCS or State Board feel that a reasonable person could potentially reach a different conclusion based upon the evidence, they must give deference to LACBO and uphold its decision unless they're persuaded that no reasonable person could reach the same conclusion that the County Board reached in this matter. And Vista has failed to meet that standard in its appeal. An additional note that I'd like to make, Mr. Lemo mentioned the change, what he referred to as a change in law. It's our opinion that that recent bill is simply a restatement of existing law. And under the law, as this petition is to be reviewed, an abuse of discretion must be found at both levels, not merely one level, as Mr. Lemo has suggested. So for the reasons we've stated in our opposition and today, we respectfully request that this appeal be summarily denied. Thank you.
All right. At this time, are there any public commenters on the phone for item 1?
Yes, sir. We do have a handful of callers.
All right. So the operator will notify the callers when it's their turn to provide public comment. Reminder, public comment is limited to 1 minute per speaker. Please begin.
Good morning, caller. Please state your name and affiliation for the record for public comment on item 1. Your time starts now.
Good morning, Chair Walsh and members. This is Eric Premack with the Charter Schools Development Center. We thank Craig and his colleagues for their work on this. We're in support of the recommendation to hear this appeal. We think there's considerable evidence here to support the hearing of the appeal, and we think the notion that a district with over 400,000 students isn't able to absorb the impact of a small new charter school is ludicrous on its face. So we hope that you will vote to recommend that the board hear the appeal. Thank you.
Next caller, please state your name and affiliation for the record. Your time starts now.
My name is Jay Perano. I'm one of the teachers here at Vista Charter Middle School. A common thing I keep hearing is if we can meet everything that we've put into our charter. I've spent about a decade with Vista Charter Middle School, and between presenting at Johns Hopkins through Global, Way of Counsel, our STEAM program with PLTW, our workshop work that puts every student at their own level, I know we can do everything we've put in that charter. from everything I've heard so far, a lot of it is legal jargon, but to me, it's legal jargon as a teacher. But I want to focus in on the name of this high school, legacy. And that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to continue our legacy with our students as they go through high school. It's always a shame to us to see them go K through 8 and then not continue the magical work they do with us. So I hope you do agree with this appeal. Thank you.
Good morning, caller. Please state your name and affiliation for the record. Your time starts now.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Ann Swinburne from the California Teachers Association. We sent a public comment letter with the California School Employees Association respectfully urging you to recommend that the State Board summarily deny this appeal. Despite the high standard of abuse of discretion established in AB 1505, we continue to see charter petitioners appeal to the State Board simply because they do not like or agree with the outcomes of robust local analysis, deliberation, and governance, not because any abuse of discretion has occurred. Such is the case here where, with all due respect to staff's recommendation, there is no indication of an abuse of discretion, despite the petitioners and their counsel's attempts to create one out of thin air. Failure to summarily deny this appeal will only serve to encourage charter petitioners to continue to bring these baseless appeals to the State Board, wasting the time of not just this commission, but members of the State Board, CDE staff, authorizer board members, and members of the public. Thank you for your time.
Next caller, please state your name and affiliation for the record. Your time starts now. Caller with the phone number ending in 2550. You're live. Go ahead. Next caller, please state your name and affiliation for the record. Your time starts now. Good morning, caller. Please state your name and affiliation for the record. Your time starts now.
Hi, good morning. My name is Erica Menendez, and I am a current parent at Vista Charter Middle School with a student with disabilities. I am calling in to demand that you open our high school, Vista Legacy Global Academy. The community and myself have been waiting for this high school to open and serve our needs for many years now. We are worried, I am worried, about my child's needs not being met at our local high school. I grew up in this community, and I've seen our local high schools and know our local high schools. I ask that you please take into consideration and let us open our high school. I have been here 2 years with my students. I want them to continue with the Vista family in order to get the support and the love that my child gets from the special education team. Thank you so much.
And final caller, please state your name and affiliation for the record. Your time starts now. Okay, we don't have any callers in the queue.
Do we have any public comment here in the room?
We do have individuals signed up for public comment. Would the following individuals please stand up? Nicholas Watson, Colin Pelch, and Karen Amaya. Please state your name and affiliation for the record. You will have 1 minute. Your time begins now.
Good morning. My name is Nicholas Watson. I'm speaking on behalf of the California Charter Schools Association. We thank the ACCS members for the consideration of this item. CCSA supports the staff recommendation. Vista is a high-quality charter school operator with a track record of success, and Vista's legacy will succeed also. The Charter Schools Act favors the creation of new schools like Vista Legacy. Vista will serve the entire community. Nothing in the district or county findings demonstrated that Vista Legacy will have a negative community impact. Vista's written submission documents multiple abuses of discretion by both the district and the county. Please support the staff recommendation and vote to have this appeal considered by the State Board. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Colin Felch, Deputy Superintendent for Vista Charter Public Schools. I would like to reiterate 3 main points that Dr. Wilson shared in his remarks. Vista is a very well-established and well-respected organization, successfully operating 6 schools, including 2 schools authorized by LA Unified, both of which were unanimously approved by the LAUSD Board. Second, Vista Legacy's petition has a unique set of programs and signature practices, and the combination of these programs cannot be found at any other high school in Los Angeles. A student would have to attend multiple high schools across the city to access what Vista Legacy is proposing to offer under one roof. And third, our parents and students have been clamoring for us to open a Vista High School in Los Angeles for years, and it's time to give our families what they want and deserve. Thank you, CDE, for recommending that ACCS issue a recommendation to the SBE to hear our appeal, and I humbly urge you to support the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you so much for your hard work. My name is Karen Amaya, Assistant Superintendent of Vista Charter Public Schools. Prior to this role, I served as principal of Vista Charter Middle School for 6 years, serving the students and families who are being directly impacted by this decision. Vista Charter Public School has made a number of commitments to the school community, and I'm proud to say that we've been able to deliver by creating a safe and caring school environment where students are loved and accepted through our SEL programs, also providing high-quality, rigorous academics in a data-driven environment where we meet students where they're at and ensure the structures and resources they need to thrive. However, our families in Los Angeles continue to demand a high school so that their children can continue with the Vista family, benefiting from these resources and services that they currently receive. Due to financial impact, many of them could not be here today, and it seems like many of them also had technical difficulties when connecting.
Time.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And Commissioners, it is now up to us to deliberate. So, Commissioners, do you have any questions that you would like to start with? Commissioner King.
Yes. My question is for LAUSD and the county. So one of the findings is that Vista Legacy Global is demonstrably unlikely to be able to deliver their program. Can you explain how you arrived at that conclusion, considering their long-standing charter?
Thank you, Commissioner King, for your question. I'll address briefly, and I'm going to ask my colleague, Mr. Wickmanowski, to also come up briefly, and then we'll turn to the county. First, as part of the process, for any existing petitioner and guided by the statute, we'll look at their existing record as well as all of their materials. And in looking at their record, as stated in the findings, we assess concerns regarding some of the performance of the totality of their schools, not solely schools in LA Unified's jurisdictions. We look at the whole record of all of their schools, regardless of authorization, for example. And then secondly, for each of we noted also elements from the capacity interview that raised some concerns and questions which are noted. So we'll give a few more detailed examples from that review, but I wanted to set the table about that holistic review of the entire performance of the organization, LA Unified authorized schools, as well as all of its schools with other authorizers. Taylor, please. A few examples.
Thank you. Good morning. So as Director Cole Gutierrez mentioned, we based that on a holistic review, and we noted that our staff identified inconsistencies between the petition, supporting documentation, and statements made by the petitioner during the capacity interview. For example, we had questions about the career technical education pathway and the dual enrollment program. The petitioner, in response during our capacity interview, stated that the charter school will not offer dual enrollment courses in partnership with UC Irvine, which is in direct contradiction to what is stated within the petition. Additionally, in our review, whether the charter was whether the organization was demonstrably unlikely to successfully implement, as Director Cole Gutierrez mentioned, we looked at the performance of the existing Vista schools within LAUSD that were authorized by LAUSD, as well as their existing schools that were authorized in Orange County. At the time of our review, the only data that was available, or the most recent data that was available, was the 2019 California School Dashboard data. And we found that for those schools that had data, 3 of those had underperformed the state on a majority of the academic performance indicators for the 3 most recent years for which dashboard data was available at the time. That was 2017, 2018, and 2019. And Vista Condor Global Academy, which only had 1 year of academic data, which is 2019, had underperformed the state on all academic performance indicators in that year. So essentially, we looked at their familiarity with the petition, as well as their existing academic track record, and again found that the majority of their schools had underperformed the state on the applicable indicators for the years the data was available.
So I have a question. Do you have another one? So I appreciate that you're looking at the totality of all of their data, but I'm curious, how is their data within LA Unified? I would love to know what's that charter, or rather, excuse me, the authorizer, how are things going within that group? Because we've already heard that they've been renewed 3 previous times. So I'm a little surprised at this part of the conversation.
Well, the standard for review of a renewal has changed after AB 1505. And so at their most recent renewal for Vista Charter Middle, it was under the standard that they would compare their academic performance to what were known as the resident schools median in the schools and the resident, whereas now that they're compared to the state as a whole. So the current review, our standard review, is looking at how they compared to the state as a whole. And so in 2019, Vista Charter Middle, again, that was the most recent year we were looking at, they underperformed the state in ELA, a negative 25.7 distance from standard, as opposed to the state as negative 2.5 at the state average. In math, we saw negative 56.7 DFS compared to the state at negative 33.5. At the time of our review, the existing elementary school, Vista Horizon Global Academy, did not have any available state data, so we did not compare that. So for the school that we did have available data within the LAUSD authorized school, we saw that in ELA and in math, as well as English Learner Performance Indicator, ELPI, we saw that they were underperforming the state. Additionally, they underperformed the state in chronic absenteeism. Thank you.
Chair Walsh, can I ask a follow-up to that? So you're comparing to statewide averages. Did you consider demographics?
We did, yes. And so we looked at for the subgroups. And so for a majority of the subgroups in 2019, the majority of the numerically significant student groups, we saw that those numerically significant student groups had underperformed the state in ELA. However, in mathematics, we did see that the majority had outperformed the state in the area of mathematics for that single school. When we looked at the totality, however, at the Orange County authorized schools, we saw somewhat of a reversal of that. Although it was consistent in ELA, we saw that the majority or all of their numerically significant student groups underperformed the state. We also saw that in math, that a numerically significant subgroups, a majority or all, had underperformed the state.
Did you compare them to schools in your area or schools in LA Unified that the students would have otherwise attended? Or is it just comparisons to the state?
It's part of our community impact analysis. We also look at the schools within that 3-mile radius that would serve similar grade levels. So we did do an analysis of the comparable schools, the existing middle schools within that radius, and we found that that the existing Vista Charter Middle underperformed the average or the median scores for the LAUSD, both our district schools and our LAUSD authorized charter schools within that radius.
And so to then underscore to the questions, which we appreciate, not only was that the holistic view with a new petition to meet the standard, we looked at the specific LA Unified authorized charter schools, and as Taylor just noted, the different levels of that analysis. And so while the renewal point is tangentially relevant as to we understand the school has been renewed, however, we're talking about the establishment of a new school and its capacity to do so based on its overall record. And hopefully that draws out that point a bit further with those details.
I'd like to ask a couple of clarifying questions because I'd like to hear a response from Vista as well. But I'm going back to the other point because one of the things that we've been mentioning has to do with the Charter Act of 1992 to encourage charters. And you're looking at families ultimately who are choosing Vista and have continued to choose Vista. So that being the case, I still go back to a question that actually Commissioner Taylor just asked. So are you saying, just for clarification, because I'd like to hear Vista's response to this, that the schools within the 3-mile radius or whatever radius that you're choosing to look at, that Vista is underperforming all of those schools?
Yes, that's what our findings showed. And I would note to your first point in terms of the intent of the legislation. LA Unified School District this school year has a total of 271 charter schools, of which 221 are independent charter schools. The district is proud of its work to approve quality charter schools that meet the statute and recommend for denial those that in our assessment do not. That record, I think, speaks for itself. In this case, this is different than a renewal consideration of Vista charter schools. And the data that we and the findings that our Board of Education considered enumerated with evidence the reasons for which this petition that they submitted, considering the organization's overall record, did not meet the criteria. I don't know if you wanted to hear from the county before Vista to your question.
Sure.
If I may note, just to clarify to your question, whether they underperformed all, no, they did not underperform all, but the median, performance of the schools within that 3-mile radius.
Which is, thank you for that, which is a consistent way we would look at all schools. So it would be consistent with that. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. In terms of that finding, right, it's whether or not the school is demonstrably unlikely to implement the petition as written. And I think that's where we really saw some serious concerns. And to the point of this organization having a history of schools, they have this history of middle and now elementary, but I think where some of their experience is lacking is really in that high school area. And I'll give you a couple examples of where we saw problems with the petition as written. I think, number one, as you've even heard today, that major focus of the climate change is still in development. And we talked directly to the UC that they're working with in terms of that, and also asked questions about that at the capacity interview. And I think it became clear to us that that was at such a developmental stage that it was unlikely it was even going to happen in the first term of their charter. So it was highly unlikely that that was going to happen as written. We also looked at the high school that they've just recently opened, which had a very similar petition and had some of those similar pieces in there, and whether those things had been implemented there. And there were things such as some of the foreign languages and different pieces that they're focusing on that have not been implemented in that school that they've already started. So we clearly saw there were pieces there that were highly unlikely to be implemented. On top of that, there were pieces that they themselves told us would not be implemented. So their petition as written had this whole plan of co-locating on one of their other sites. Yet at the capacity interview and even at our board meeting, publicly to our board, they said no, that they now had a Prop 39 and they'd be moving there. That completely changes their fiscal plan, their staffing plan, changes everything. So it was clear to us that the petition was not going to be implemented as written. And that's, I think, the basis for us. It was not necessarily just some designation of whether they could be successful or not. It really was, are they likely to successfully implement the petition as written? And it was very clear to us that that was not the case.
I'd like to hear, yeah.
So we'd like to invite Vista to respond, please. And then as Vista approaches, I want to just make a reminder to the commission that for us, this is, we want to be mindful not to delve too deeply into educational program or school finance, et cetera, abuse of discretion. that would be a Bagley-Keene violation for us. So I'm going to be mindful.
Just want to respond to clarify a few of the comments that were made that are incorrect. So the first one regarding the climate change leadership pathway, reaching out to UC Irvine. We have a signed contract with the UC Irvine Science Project that we have been implementing in Orange County. Again, I can provide that if needed. I don't know who they called. They didn't even ask us. If they had asked us, I would have been happy to provide that agreement. Second, in terms of Prop 39 and the co-locating, we, just like every charter school, reserve the legal right to apply for Prop 39. We basically wanted to keep that right by applying for Prop 39. So, and my colleague is going to talk a little bit about the academic data.
With regards to the data, thank you so much just for pointing out that while LAUSD has been using, after AB 1505, the statewide comparison, one thing that does fail is to note is that our demographics, we serve a population of 98% low income, which the state does not. Therefore, it is very unlikely that our data is going to look remotely similar. In 2019, not only did we outperform a number of the local schools, Vista Charter Middle School had an 11% growth in math in 1 year, and they had a 6% growth in language arts. The state only had less than 1% in language arts that year, and approximately 1%, or I'm sorry, less than 2% in math. So that was numerically significant, as they said, in comparison to the other schools. In 2019, just two of the neighboring LAUSD schools, Sal Castro and John Lathy. Sal Castro's ELA scores, their ELA, they performed at 25% proficient in ELA, where Vista performed 40% proficient in ELA. So I'm not sure why they're saying that all their schools outperformed Vista. That was Sal Castro. John Lathy, 30%, where Vista performed 40%. Vista also, like I said, performed 26.5% proficient in math, an 11% growth from the previous year, where Sal Castro, 16%, math, 12%. In our EL population, we also saw significant growth that year, whereas the neighboring schools saw dips in the ELA. And the one thing I do want to note is that year after year, our reclassified students outperform our English-only students, because while they reclassify, we continue to provide services for them to continue to develop their language acquisition. And if you look at our data, our RFEPs are consistently outperforming not just English-only students in our schools, but also in the local schools.
Thank you.
I had a question. It might be for CDE, so I'm just asking a little bit of clarification. So I don't know, Craig, if maybe this is a CDE question, is around our role post trailer bill. Trying to understand sort of, I know we were talking about the academics, we were talking about some of the back and forth between the district believes this and the charter believes this, and I believe our role is to focus on is there something in the documentary record that would indicate that this appeal should be heard by the state board?
Thank you. I appreciate the question. And yes, as far as the role of the ACCS, it has not substantially changed. That was a clarification in the trailer bill. But for you, it is, as you say, the basis for making a determination in our view, in our recommendation, is basically coming down to not the back and forth in the documentary record. That's to be saved for the state board meeting if they choose to hear it. This is just mainly based on the submission of the petitioner. Is it a complete submission? Was it a timely submission? Is there enough indicated in reference to the documentary record that's specific enough in terms of evidence that there could be a dispute? Not the merits of the dispute, not the details of the dispute, but just basically it's based on the submission of the petitioner. So in our view, that threshold was met, and that's why we've made that recommendation to you. I appreciate the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, for the question and clarification. So at this point, do we have any further questions to get clarification, or do I hear a motion?
I have a question. Thank you for that clarification. But again, so I'm still, just to clear things up, looking at, the 6,000 page agenda that we had this time around, and trying to get through it, and again having to search out the budget and so on. I'm not sure if I can ask a question on that, if that's because again, looking at this, that gives me evidence for denial, because when I look at the staffing that's proposed for the startup of a school with 125 students, it's just not sufficient to have a good program.
Well, for us, we're not. We don't want to dive into the merits of the petition and decide right or wrong. We're just simply having a conversation as to whether or not we think it needs to move forward.
So, in layman's terms, are we looking for smoke? That's essentially what we're looking for. Is there smoke? Is there some sort of conflict, some sort of debate around this that we would then make a recommendation to the state board to say it's unclear whether or not there was an abuse of discretion, and if so, we should move it forward. That's kind of that's what I think I'm hearing from Craig. That's what I think I read in the statute is our role. And I mean, if I'm just sort of speaking out loud to the group, if that's what we understand our role to be.
And I'm echoing your speak. Yes, if we feel there's a reason to move it forward, that's what we need to decide. We're not to get into the arguments as to the merit of the petition, whether it's a sound program or not. It just comes down to, do we believe this needs to move forward?
And if that's the case, I would be prepared to make a motion to move the staff recommendation.
So at this moment, you are making a motion to move this forward. So we have a motion to move the CDE recommendation for the state board to hear this from Matt Taylor. Do we have a second? So we have a couple seconds, and I'll go with Commissioner Brazil. All right. So I'll go ahead and take a roll unless there's further conversation. All right. Derek King, we have a motion to move the recommendation forward to the State Board of Education. Derek, how do you vote?
Aye.
And then Commissioner Brazil?
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Commissioner Portillo?
Aye.
Commissioner Olmos?
Aye.
And Commissioner Fennell?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Motion passes unanimously for the state board to hear this. Good work. Appreciate the conversation, the questions, and thank you again for your being here and the travel. Meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much.